Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Get some water. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Pramos Vanchakalpataram Yasya Kripasan Vacha Paritam Pavanityam Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So, can we start or we still wait for a few minutes?
The decision is yours. We have only 4 of us here. Okay, I think one person just joined.
We have 6 people.
Yeah.
5 in the teacher.
Yeah, including me. Yeah. So,
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances. All glories to Guru Deva and Krishna Prabhupada.
Jai Maharaj. Please, I'm sorry yesterday I have to do my devotion, what I call it, prescribed duty. Sorry, I have to work somewhere yesterday. So that was, I was unable to join you, please. So sorry about it.
Even yesterday we had some problems. My internet wasn't stable. It went up a number of times.
Okay.
Just end the whole thing abruptly.
I went through the recording. It was at least the ones that was clear was very interesting, Maharaj. Very interesting. I went through it.
Hare Krishna. So I think let me say the prayers. We will chant the Sanatana Goswami's glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we see by then some more people might have joined. Otherwise, we have to proceed because today, somehow or the other, we must complete the unit.
Yes.
Somehow or the other. So we have to start. Om Gyana Timeridasya Gyanan Gyanashala Kaya Chakshunamalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Bitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Scha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swaminiti Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shri Tadmani Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tetar Iti Namini Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvese Sasuyavadi Pasachade Santarini Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gaurati Namaha Nityananda Vatutendra Vasuda Pranavala Baha Janaviri Givita Patir Krishna Prema Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Sriman Sachirananda Pravajaha Bhavum Mata Jagat Rakta Gora Kile Varaha Advaitam Harinadvaita Racharyam Bhakti Shamshanat Bhaknavataram Bhaktash Yam Namami Bhakti Shantikam Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shantikam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabaya Nama Pankajamalini Nama Pankajanitraya Namaste Pankajagraye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gaurati Namaha Nityanando Vatutendur Vasuda Pranavalabha Janaviri Jivita Patir Krishna Premata Prabhu Padmavati Sita Srimam Sachirananda Pravajaha Bhavam Mata Jagat Rakta Rakta Gora Kile Varaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Jayatam Surato Pango Mama Mandir Gatima Sarvaswa Padam Pujo Radha Mandana Mohano Divya Vindaranya Kalpadrimanda Srimarana Gara Simhastanastao Sri Sri Radha Sri La Govinda Devo Christiani Visavya Manosmarami Srimam Rasa Rasaram Vivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venu Swanai Gopi Gopinata Sri Estinaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Bindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Devi Krishna Mai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarvam Kanti Samohini Paraha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayana Namaskritya Nara Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Madiraya Nashta Praya Shabadresu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Mukam karoti vachalam pangam lagayate grim yatri patamahan vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Adhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakaram Vyapta Inachara Charam Tanpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So can we chant the Sanatana Goswami's glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam? So Goswami's prayers are on the screen. Sarva Shastradi Priyusha Sarva Vedeka Sadpalaha Sarva Siddhanta Radnadhya Sarva Lokaika Dak Prana. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light to all the worlds. 2. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kali Dvanto Dita Ditya Sri Krishna Prarivar Yitaha. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. 3. Paramananda Prataya Prema Varni Akaranayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostate. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone, and you are Sri Krishna himself. 4. Mat Eka Bando Mat Sangim Mat Guru Mat Mahadanaha Mat Nishtaraka Mat Bhagya Mat Ananda Namostate. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. And 5. Asadu Saduta Adayim Atine Chochata Karaha Anamuchangadachimam Prema Hrit Kanoya Josupraha. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart, and my voice is pure love. So everyone is welcome to this morning's discussion. Yesterday we were on verse 9 when the internet went off. So I think we'll continue from verse 9 again, and we would continue the rest of the verse. But what I want to do is that I want to have an overview of the whole chapter. An overview, so that we cover the whole chapter in the form of an overview, and then we can now come back, and whatever time we'll have, we can now touch verse by verse. So the overview gives you a broad understanding of the chapter that can help you even to read on your own. So what I want to do now is to read an overview of chapter 3. We are supposed to read text 39. That covers the lesson 5. And the next unit, lesson 2, begins from verse 40 of this chapter. So what I want to do is first, the structure of the lesson. This lesson or this chapter discusses 5 primary topics. 5 primary topics. The first topic is the Purusha avatars. The Purusha avatars, that is from verses 1 to 5. Verses 1 to 5 discusses the Purusha avatars. And what are the Purusha avatars? There are 3. Karana Dakashai Vishnu, who provides the ingredients for material creation. Then Dakashai Vishnu, who generates the lotus flower from his navel, gives birth to Brahma and the universal form, the planetary systems, and all living entities. Therefore, the Prachitas, in their glorification of this Lord Narayan, they make a very interesting statement. They said, Nama Kamala Nabaya, Nama Kamala Maline, Nama Kamala Padaya, Namaste Kamalekshanaha. Oh, our dear Lord, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you, because from your abdomen sprouts the lotus flower, the origin of Brahma and all living entities. You are always decorated with a lotus garland, and your feet resemble the lotus flower with all its fragrance. Your eyes are also like the petals of the lotus flower. Therefore, we always offer obeisances unto you. In the same vein, Kunti also makes the same thing, almost similar prayers. Nama Pankaja Nabaya, Nama Pankaja Netraya, Nama Pankaja Maline, Namaste Pankaja Graye. Kunti Devi is also making a similar prayer. Nama Pankaja Nabaya, that your lotus navel, your navel is like that of a lotus. And then Nama Pankaja Netraya, your eyes, Netra means eyes, your eyes are like that of the lotus petals. Nama Pankaja Maline, you always wear a lotus garland. Pankaja means lotus. Pankaja Maline, Maline means mala, mala means garland. You always wear a lotus garland. And then your feet, Pankaja, your feet are always as beautiful as the lotus feet, as the lotus flowers. Your feet are always decorated by lotus flowers, and they have the fragrance of lotus flowers. They are as beautiful as the lotus flowers. So in this way, various devotees have glorified the Purusha avatars. The Purusha avatars are glorified because it is from the Purusha avatar that the material creation comes. And it's from the Purusha avatars that all the incarnations that come into the material world, they pass through the Purusha avatars. So, so from verse 1 to 5 describes the Purusha avatars. So if you read through verse 1 to 5, you see it's talking about the Purusha avatars and their functions. Karan Dakashai Vishnu provides the material ingredients. Garbha Dakashai Vishnu effects the creation actually, because he manifests the lotus flower, manifests Brahma, and then Brahma creates the planetary systems and the bodies of the living entities. Then Shirodakashaya Vishnu is the super soul of the living entities. And he is actually the maintainer of the universe. Shirodakashaya Vishnu lives in this universe. He lives in Sweaterdip. There is a planet within this universe which is spiritual. It's called Sweaterdip. That is where Kshirodakashayi Vishnu lives. It's an ocean of milk. He lives there. And from that Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, he expands into the super soul that goes with every living entity. So this is the description of the Purusha avatars. Then from chapter 6, from verse 6 to 29, then there is a discussion of the various incarnations. Yesterday we heard about the incarnation. The first incarnation is the Kumaras. The Kumaras. The Kumaras were the first, and then followed by the boy incarnation, then followed by Narada Muni, then followed by Narayan Rishi, then followed by Kapila. But each of these incarnations, they have a specific function. Each of them has a specific function. The Kumaras, they perform severe austerities, they observe celibacy in order to realize this absolute truth. So they are the symbols of austerity. They are the symbols of purity. They are the symbols of great determination. They were the first to be born by Brahma, but they are so determined that they have remained celibate all throughout. Even though Brahma's intention was to order them to help him in the creation of the population of the universe. Any living entity Brahma manifested, his desire was for them to help them to populate the universe. But these four Kumaras, Chatusanas, they are called Chatusanas, they were so determined that they ignored Brahma's order and they remained celibate. And they began to perform severe austerities. And because they have refused to allow their semen to flow downwards, they have remained like babies, even though they're the oldest in the universe. Besides Brahma, they're the oldest in the universe. But because they don't allow their semen to flow downwards, they remain young. So this is a very important principle, that if one wants to remain young, remain strong, and live longer, one should minimize or stop the flow of semen. The semen should not flow downwards. The semen should flow upwards. Then the next incarnation, which is the Varaha Incarnation. The Varaha Incarnation is the enjoyer of all sacrifices because it's actually a Vishnu Tattva. The Kumaras are not Vishnu Tattvas. They are living entities empowered. So they are Satyavesha. But Varaha is a Vishnu Tattva. So therefore, he's the enjoyer of all sacrifices. And his specific function was to lift the earth from the nether regions and place it back in its position. So it is said that the expansions of the Supreme Lord, the Swamsas, the direct expansions of the Supreme Lord, they perform very inconceivable activities, mysterious activities beyond the understanding and capability of the living entity. And that differentiates the Lord from ordinary living entities. Even that differentiates the Lord from the Satyavesha incarnations. So the boy incarnation is the second incarnation. And the third incarnation is Devarishi Narada. Devarishi Narada is the third incarnation. It's also a Satyavansh avatar. And he came purposely to teach devotional service. Therefore, he wrote his Narada Sutras or Narada Pancharatras to describe the process of bhakti, how one can please the Supreme Lord. So that is Narada's function as an incarnation, a certain Vesha incarnation. Then the fourth incarnation is Narayan Rishi. Narayan Rishi undertook very, very severe austerities. Very, very severe austerities. And these austerities are meant for the welfare of the living entities in this world. Actually, till today, Narayan Rishi, they are in Badrinath. Badrinath is the topmost part of the Himalayan mountains. Narayan Rishi, they are there and they are performing austerity. There's a temple there called the Badrinath temple. And these deities, there is a deity of Narayan Rishi there. And that is where Lord Krishna instructed Uddhava when Krishna was leaving the planet. He instructed Uddhava to go there and associate with the devotees of Narayan Rishi so that he can complete his spiritual perfection and then come back home. So when Krishna left the planet, then Uddhava trekked all the way from Dwaraka to Badrinath. And on the way to Badrinath, he met Vidura in Vrindavan. And he told Vidura he had a message for him. Actually, Krishna left a message for him, but he was not in a qualified position to deliver the message because Uddhava was younger than Vidura. Vidura was much older than Uddhava, and therefore Uddhava felt he wasn't qualified. Is superior. It is called Maryada. What is it? Maryada Vitya Karma. Maryada Vitya Karma. When one tries to show that he's better than his superiors, it's an offense, which is called Maryada Vitya Karma. So Uddhava did not want to commit that offense. So he told Vidura that why don't you go to Maitreya? Because Maitreya, Vidura, Maitreya and Uddhava, they were there when Krishna was disappearing. And Krishna left a message for Vidura. So both Maitreya and Uddhava, they heard the message. But Uddhava said he's not qualified by age to instruct Vidura. So Vidura should go to Haridwar because Maitreya was in Haridwar, which is not too far from Vrindavan. So he should go to Haridwar and meet Maitreya, and Maitreya will instruct him because Maitreya is much more older than Vidura. So Vidura left Vrindavan and then he went to, but he heard about the disappearance of Krishna and he wept. He wept seriously. Then he left Uddhava and went to Haridwar in order to meet Maitreya. And then when he met Maitreya, then Maitreya delivered a message to him. But Uddhava continued to the Himalayas, and where he associated with the devotees of Narayan Rishi, and in due course of time, Uddhava went back home, back to Godhead. So the Narayan Rishi, they are the fourth incarnations. And they are still on this planet performing austerities for the welfare of humanity. Then the fifth incarnation is Lord Kapila Dev. Kapila Dev gave the exposition of the Sankhya philosophy, which is more or less like a metaphysical understanding of the material elements, material creation. So that was the purpose of Kapila Dev's coming, to teach Sankhya philosophy. There are two Kapilas. There is Asuri Kapila and there is Devahuti Putra Kapila. One Kapila appeared and he was preaching atheism. He preached atheism. He preached the Sankhya philosophy, but he did not connect it to God. It's like this scientific theory that everything manifested automatically, the Big Bang theory. Actually, sometimes Prabhupada mentioned that this scientific theory is like it's coming from that Kapila, Asuri Kapila, because he propounded the theory of Sankhya, but he did not link it.
Hare Krishna, Your Grace, please kindly unmute yourself. Thank you.
All right. So the Vahuti Putra Kapila, he explained Sankhya in relationship to devotional service and relationship to the Supreme. So in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you come across such beautiful exposition of Bhakti by Kapila Muni, all in connection with Sankhya philosophy. So his specific function or mission was to give Sankhya philosophy. Then the sixth incarnation is Dattatreya, the son of Atri and Anasuya. He also spoke on the subject matter of transcendence. He spoke to Alarka, to Prahlad, and to the High-Highers. High-Highers are also some tribe, some aspect of human beings. They also have their own planets. They live in their, like the Kinaris, Gandharvas, and on. So they are also, so Dattatreya spoke transcendental knowledge to them. That is the sixth incarnation. The seventh incarnation is Yagya, the son of Prajapati, Ruchi, and Akuti. So it is said that during the change of Swayambhuva Manu, it's called Sandhya. When one Manu is given leaving and another Manu is coming, it's a change of government. The Manus are like the head of governments. So when one Manu's time is up, there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma. So when one Manu's day is up, then there is a period called Sandhya, Sandhya Yuga. And there's a changeover from one Manu to the next. And sometimes there is also annihilation, because when a Manu is coming, certain officers have to be changed. Indra is changed, the sages are changed, the local palace, the governors of the universe are changed. So during that period of Sandhya, there are some changes, and there is also annihilation. Like the story in the Bible, they talk about the flood that took place in the Bible, and Noah's ark. These are just stories from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Their stories culled from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It was during this Sandhya when one Manu's time was up and then another Manu was to take over. So therefore, there was an inundation. The whole universe was inundated up to the Mahaloka, Tapaloka, Tatyaloka. Those three planetary systems are not affected when there is such inundation. But those below, they are all destroyed. So, Matsya Avatar came. Matsya Avatar appeared to King Satyaraj and told him about the flood, the inundation, and to protect the scriptures and protect some sages. He instructed the king that a golden ark will come, and that the king should put every species of life in that golden ark. And then before, they said in 7 days, all these things have to happen. And then the Matsya Avatar, he was the person who directed the ark. There was a golden rope from the ark to Matsya Avatar, and Matsya Avatar was now pulling the ark with the sages inside, with the species of every life inside. So that is the story we find in the Bible about Noah. It's actually taken off from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that happened during the Sandhya, when one Manu is taking over from the other Manu. So it is said that Yagya, he controlled the period between a change from one Manu to the other Manu. He's the son of Prajapati Ruchi and one of the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. You know, Swayambhuva Manu had three daughters, Akuti, Prachuti, and Devahuti. And he has two sons. Priyavrata is the senior son, and then Uttanapat. But Uttanapat, Priyavrata, being a senior son, was supposed to be the king, but he renounced. He went to the forest to meditate. And so the junior brother Uttanapat was made the king. But later on, when Uttanapat retired and Dhruva Maharaj, who was the son of Uttanapat, took over and also retired, there was no qualified person to rule. So Brahma has to come and order Priyavrata, who was now like a sannyasi in the forest, to come back and manage the universe. And Priyavrata was giving excuses why he cannot. And finally, the Supreme Lord himself came and said, Priyavrata, somebody must manage the universe, you have to do it. And he was saying, I'm already on a certain level of spiritual development. I don't want to get contaminated. I don't want to be influenced by Maya. And the Lord said, don't worry, just do your duty and just think of me and you'll be free. So on that note, Priyavrata had to get married and he had to become the next king after Prahlad Maharaj. So anyway, Yagya is the son of Prajapati Ruchi and Akuti, one of the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. The seventh incarnation is Rishabhadev, the son of Nabi and Meru Devi. We all know the teachings of Rishabhadev in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Rishabhadev is teaching about renunciation. He's teaching about the goal of human life. Tapu Divyam Putraka. He's telling them that, my dear boys, he had 100 sons, and the senior son was called Bharat. So it is said that this planet is named after the son of Rishabhadev. He showed the path of perfection, following those who are fully controlled their senses. So Rishabhadev, he performed such extraordinary pastimes, even though people misunderstood him. And that has led to all kinds of religious practices. Like he was naked. In his last days, he went naked. He wouldn't even eat anything. He would just lie in one place. He would pass 2 over himself. So he went overboard. Though even it is said that his stool was as fragrant as musk. It was as fragrant as the best scent you can think of. And that smell could go 80 miles radius. So even though he was living a life of an avaduta, he actually lived a life on avaduta, but all that he did was beyond human conception. It was inconceivable. But he showed the path of spiritual realization by great austerities. It is even said at a point he put a stone in his mouth so that he doesn't even talk. He won't communicate with anybody and just meditate on the supreme essence. Then the next is King Prithu. Prithu, he actually cultivated the earth. When Prithu took over from his demonic father, we know Prithu Maharaj, his father was King Vena. King Vena was very sinful. He was so sinful and so rude that he did not respect the Brahmanas. In Vedic times, there is always a need for a Brahminical council to advise the ruler. And the Kshatriyas cannot rule without a Brahminical direction, because the Brahmanas, they are the heads, they have the knowledge, and therefore the Kshatriya receives knowledge from them in order to rule. But during the time of King Vena, he was not that kind of a king. He was very puffed up, he was very arrogant, and so he ignored the Brahmanas. And he was even asking the Brahmanas to worship him. So the Brahmanas felt this guy, he has gone overboard, we should not allow him. So they killed him. They chanted mantras and killed King Vena. But his mother was very affectionate, even though he was such a bad king. So the mother preserved the body of King Vena in honey. Honey is a natural preservant. So he was preserved in honey. And then when he was absent, thieves and rogues overtook the country, and there was a lot of trouble. And since he did not have a son, they had to churn his body, churn his thighs to produce a son. So the same Brahmanas who killed him, they churned King Vena's body with mantras, and they produced an incarnation of the Lord, Prithu Maharaj, and his wife, Archie. And then Prithu Maharaj, because Vena was very sinful, the earth refused to produce grains. The earth refused to produce herbs. The earth refused to support living entities. So when Prithu Maharaj took over, he became very angry at Mother Earth. He picked up his bow and arrow and wanted to kill Mother Earth, who was in the form of a cow. And then finally, Mother Earth surrendered to King Prithu and made sure that there was enough grains, enough vegetables, enough everything for everyone. So here is said King Prithu cultivated the land and yielded various products. Thus the earth became beautiful and attractive. Then we have the next incarnation is Matsya. During inundation, after Chakshusha Manu, he protected Vaishvata Manu, keeping him up on a boat. So I already mentioned that. When the period of Chakshusha Manu was over, Vaishvata Manu was to take over. And so at that time, Matsya appeared, and he instructed Vaishvata how to save the situation and provided the golden ark, which is described in the Bible as Noah's Ark. So that is the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10. That's the 10th incarnation, Matsya Avatar. And then the next incarnation is Kurma Avatar. Kurma Avatar is the tortoise incarnation. The tortoise incarnation, he adventured himself for the purpose of the churning of the milk ocean. When the demigods and the demons, they entered into an agreement, they entered into a truce to churn the milk ocean so that they can get some nectar that would prolong their lives. They had to get a churning rod, which is Mandara Mountain. They needed a churning rope, which was Vasuki. And so they could not even carry the churning rod, this mountain, Mandara Mountain, they couldn't carry it. So Lord Vishnu has to help them. Lord Vishnu picked up this mountain and placed it on the wings of Garuda and brought the mountain to the milk ocean. And he put it there. And then he ordered Vasuki to become the rope for churning. But then when they placed the mountain in the milk ocean, it was sinking because there was no support. So immediately, Lord Vishnu has to assume the form of a tortoise, a huge tortoise, and supported the mountain from under. And so in this way, he provided support for the Mandara mountain. And with that support, the demigods and the demons, the demigods on one side, the demons on one side, they started churning the ocean of milk. And so many beautiful things came out of that ocean of milk. So that was when Kurma adverted himself. So he said, he shall serve as a pivot for Mandara Hill that was being used as a churning rod by the Suras and the Asuras. And then the next incarnation is Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari, he came right after Matsya, because when they were churning the milk ocean, then Dhanvantari appeared from the ocean, the milk ocean, with a kumbha, with a pot of nectar. So Dhanvantari brought the nectar pot in the churning of the milk ocean. And when Dhanvantari came out with the nectar, the demons were very smart. They seized the pot of nectar from Dhanvantari, and they were running away with it. So immediately Krishna has to incarnate in a form suitable to deceive the demons. So therefore Krishna appeared as Mohini Murti. He incarnated as Mohini Murti, the most beautiful lady in the universe, in the creation. And when the demons saw this beautiful form, they lost their senses. They surrendered to her. Whatever she said, they agreed. So this way Mohini Murti took away the nectar from them, and then he gave it to the demigods. So Mohini Murti allowed the atheists and gave the nectar to the demigods. Then the next incarnation is Narasimhadev. Narasimhadev was compelled to appear because his dearest devotee, Prahlad Maharaj, was in trouble. His father, Hiranyakashipu, was harassing him like anything. So therefore, Narasimhadev had to appear to bifurcate the strong body of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu had received benedictions from Brahma that no man can kill him, no demigod, no animal. He will not die in the day, he will not die at night, he will not die in the air, he will not die on the land, he will not die on the water. So he eliminated all possibilities of death. But the living entity may think he's very smart. The living entity may think he's too brilliant. But no one is more brilliant and smarter than Krishna, because all the smartness comes from Krishna, all the intelligence comes from Krishna. So Krishna outsmarted Hiranyakashipu. He observed all the benedictions, all the boons that Brahma gave, and still he was killed. So that form of Narasimhadev is a very special form for the protection of the devotees. The next incarnation is the Vamana Rupa. Vamana Rupa means Vamana Dev, Trivikram. So Although willing to regain 3 planetary systems, he asked for a donation of 3 steps of land from King Bali. Bali Maharaj had conquered the heavenly planet. He has conquered the universe. He has displaced the demigods, and he was now ruling. And so the demigods, they had nothing. They were like beggars. They were actually hiding in the clouds. So the mothers of the demigods, Aditi, she was very perturbed. She was very disturbed. So she approached her husband, Kasyapa Muni, and said, my dear husband, my children are deprived of their home. They are deprived of their resources. Do something. Show me a process by which I can please the Supreme Lord, who would come to the aid of my children. So Kasyapa Muni instructed Aditi to perform the Payovrat. Payovrat is a vow, a devotional vow one takes and performs some austerities for 12 days, drinking only milk. And at the end of the 12 days, one do some special prayers and special offering to the Lord. And by doing that, one's desire will be fulfilled. The Lord will be so pleased that whatever desire you have will be fulfilled. So Aditi performed that Payovrat. And at the end of this, the performance, the Lord appeared to him and said, what do you want? He said, I want you to become my son so that you can save your brothers who are in trouble. So Ramana Dev is the junior brother of Indra, and he came to save the demigods from the dictation, from the control of the Asuras, the demons. So Lord Vamana Dev, he came and asked for 3 steps of land from Bali. And Bali, when Bali agreed to give the 3 steps of land, he covered the whole universe. In fact, Bali did not know that this is the Supreme Lord who is coming as a dwarf, as a small sized personality, a brahmachari. So Bali was even being offensive by saying, small boy, you don't have good intelligence. You come to a great king like Bali. If you ask for the whole universe, I'll give you. If you ask for a whole planet, I'll give you. If you ask for anything, I'll give you. You're asking for 3 steps of land and your small legs. You are measuring everything by your small legs. What is this? Are you intelligent? And Bali Maharaj said, and Ramana Dev said that one should be satisfied with whatever providence brings. Whatever providence has given you, if you are not satisfied with that, even if you are given the entire creation, you will still not be satisfied. Yadricha Yaha. If one is not satisfied with what providence has brought, even if you get the whole world, you will still be unsatisfied. So in this way, Vamana Dev taught a very important lesson, that one should be content with what is your quota. If you're not content with your quota, even if the whole universe is given to you, you'll still never be content. Then the next person is Brigupati or Parashurama. Parashurama, we know that he came to annihilate the demonic kings. At one point in time, the kings became very demonic, very Asuric, and they were creating so many problems. So the Lord incarnated as Parashuram, Brigupati, and he annihilated the Kshatriya race 21 times. So it is actually said that because of the activities of Parashuram, that's why the people run to different parts of the world. It is said that before the time of Parashuram, many parts of the world were inhabited. There were no people in many parts of the world. Everything was really concentrated in the east. But when Parashuram came and was killing many of the Kshatriyas, they ran helter-skelter, they went different directions. So Prabhupada explains that the Europeans, the Americans, the Russians, and all of these different people, they actually originated from India. But when Parashuram came and he was wreaking havoc on all of them, they ran away, and they then formed the tribes and then citizens of different parts of the world, which were not inhabited at that time. Then we have Vyasadeva. the next incarnation, the son of Satyavati and Parasaramuni. Srila Vyasadeva is a literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He divided the Vedas into 4 branches. Before then, the Veda wasn't divided, but he divided it into 4 branches, wrote it down. Before his time, everything was by hearing, Shruti. But Srila Vyasadeva, knowing that Kali Yuga is around the corner and people who have short memory, poor memory, if things are not written down, they cannot remember. So therefore, he wrote down the Vedas and divided among his disciples. And then, but he was not satisfied. He was still despondent. He was still unhappy. And so Narada Muni appeared to him. And because Narada Muni is an incarnation of devotional service, so he appeared to Vyasadeva and told him that even though you have written these 4 Vedas, but you do not directly describe the glories of the Supreme Lord, and that is why you are unhappy. You have described many, many things, but you have not touched upon the essence of life, the glorification of Krishna. So now, go ahead and write another scripture that will directly glorify the Supreme Lord, and that will give you the highest pleasure. So Vyasadeva wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he became satisfied. So then the next incarnation is Lord Ram. Lord Ram appeared with his 3 brothers. It is said that the Chaturvyuha that expanded from Lord Balaram, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Sankarshan, and Niruddha, they all appeared as sons of Dasarat Maharaj. And Lord Ram, he was the senior of the 4 of them. And as we all know, he was to be crowned a king. And the night before he will be crowned, when all the arrangement was in place, his stepmother Kalki, under the influence of Mantara, banished Ram from Ayodhya. But Ram was so happy, he didn't take it with bad mind. He accepted his destiny. Of course, it is explained, the Acharyas explained that because his mission was to kill Ravana, his mission was to annihilate the demons. So the demigods, they used Mantara to influence Kalki, to influence Dasarat, so that he would send Ram to the forest to execute the mission for which he came. He came to kill the 10-headed Ramana and annihilate the whole tribe of demons. So that was his mission. And so this arrangement had to be there to facilitate his going to the forest. So here he said, Ram showed superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then by killing Ravana. Then the next incarnations are Balaram and Krishna in Dwarapayuk. In Dwarapayuk, Krishna and Balaram, they appeared to reduce the burden of the world and to perform their beautiful pastimes in Braj, in Mathura, and in Dwaraka. Then the next incarnation after Krishna and Balaram is Buddha. Buddha came because the scriptures written by Srila Vyasadeva were being misinterpreted and they were committing sinful activities, especially animal killing in the name of the Vedas. So Buddha came to stop animal sacrifices by telling them that they should not follow the scriptures. They should follow him. And then, of course, here it is not mentioned Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because that is called Chana Avatar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Chana Avatar. Chana Avatar means a hidden avatar. Even though the Srimad Bhagavatam 12th canto, no, 11th canto, talks about the appearance of the golden avatar. what is it? Is that Twiza Krishna? Twiza Krishna. He's Krishna, but he's not blackish. He's not blackish. The Bhagavatam talks about. He is not mentioned here. That avatar is not mentioned here. The Mahaprabhu's appearance is not mentioned here because he's Chana avatar, hidden avatar. So from Buddha, they go to Kalki, the Kalki avatar. Kalki avatar is going to come at the end of Kali Yuga, at the conjunction of Kali Yuga and Satya Yuga. When Kali Yuga comes to an end, there is a Sandhya, there is a period, and then the new age or the new Yuga is ushered in. So before the Satya Yuga is ushered in, an incarnation of the Supreme Lord called Kalki Avatar, he would appear and he would cleanse the earth of all sinful people. At that time, there will be very, very, very few Brahmanas, pure Brahmanas, who will still be following the very tradition. So those will be spared. Those few Brahmanas who will still be following the system will be spared, and they will now take over in Satya Yuga. They would become the source of population for Satya Yuga. But 99% of the population will be exterminated, will be vanquished, because everyone by then becomes very, very sinful. So Kalki Avatar comes riding a white horse with a very, very mysterious sword in hand. As soon as the sword touches you, you are dead. This horse will travel at the speed of mind. So he will travel around the whole world on a horse, and he will kill all the sinful people by himself, except the 1% of population that will still be following the Vedic tradition. And this 1%, they will now populate a Satya Yuga. So these are the incarnations. So it is said at this time, the rulers of the air will have degenerated into plunderers. And therefore, the Lord appears as Kalki to annihilate all of them. So these are the incarnations that are described verse by verse, from I think from verse 5 or so. From verse 6. From verse 6 all the way to verse 25. These incarnations are described. Verse 6 to 25 describes all these incarnations. So if you go through, this is like a summary, this is an overview. If you go through, you can then fill in the gaps. In text 26, it says, "O Brahmana, the incarnation of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible source of water." It is said that the incarnations of the Lord are like the waves of the ocean. If you go to the ocean, you stand on the shore of the ocean, and you begin to count the number of waves that are rising from the ocean and disappearing, you cannot count them. From the beginning of the day to the end of the day, from the beginning of the night to the end of the night, Waves are coming and going. Waves are coming and going. If you stand there to count, you'll get tired and you give up. So it is said that the incarnations of the Supreme Lord are like these unlimited waves. So it is said, Avatarahi Ashankeya Hare Satwa Nirdidvija Yata Vidashina Kulia Sarasaha Syu Sahasrasa. That's verse 26. Oh, Brahmana, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible source of water. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says the list of incarnations of the personality of God that given hearing is not complete. It's not complete. So we shouldn't think that this list given here is exhaustive. No, it's not exhaustive. It's not complete. It is only a partial view of all the incarnations. There are many others such as Sri Hayagreva, Hari, Hamsa, Prishnigarbha, Vibhu, Satyasena, Vaikuntha, Sarvabhauma, Vishaksena, Dharmasestu, Sudama, Yogeshwar, Brihadbanu, and others of the bygone ages. Srila Prahlad Maharaj said in his prayer, "My Lord, you manifest as many incarnations as there are species of life, namely the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the men, the demigods, etc., just for the maintenance of the faithful and the annihilation of the unfaithful." So actually the understanding is that the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable. They're innumerable. We can't count them. Some major or principal incarnations are mentioned. Prominent ones are mentioned, but they are innumerable. So we shouldn't think that this one listed here, that's the end. No, they are uncountable. So that should be understood. If you go further down in the purport, it says, there are many other places, both in the Bhagavatam and in other scriptures, in which the incarnation of the Lord as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is expressly mentioned. In the Brahma Samhita also, it is said directly that although there are many incarnations of the Lord, such as Ram, Nrsinga, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, and many others, the Lord himself sometimes incarnates in person. Lord Krishna and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are not therefore incarnations, but the original source of all other incarnations. So Sri Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are not incarnations. They are actually Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead. So all others are incarnations, but Sri Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are not incarnations. They are the original personality of Godhead. We go to text 27. 27 says, Rishayo Manavodeva Manuputra Mahojasa Kala Sarve Hare Iva Sampra Japataya Smritaha. All the rishis, Manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu, who are especially powerful, are plenary portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. This also includes the Prajapatis. Purport, those who are comparatively less powerful are called Vibhuti, and those who are comparatively more powerful are called Avesha incarnations. So even the Aveshas, they are Vibhutis. Those who are considerably very powerful, they are called Aveshas. And those who are less powerful are called Vibhutis. So even among the living entities, like we talk about Prajapatis, the Manus, demigods, rishis, they are also considered some form of incarnation, plenary of the plenary of the plenary of the plenary portions of the Supreme Lord. But the understanding is that they are either Avesha or Satyavesha or Vibhutis. They are not directly Swamsas. They are not directly Swamsas. Swamsa means the direct incarnation, direct expansion. These are empowered incarnations. So they are called Avesha or Satyavesha or Vibhuti. Vibhuti. Vibhutis are less empowered and Satyaveshas are more empowered. So they are living entities that are empowered. They are not in the category of Vishnu Tattvas. They are not in the category of Vishnu Tattvas. They are Vibhinamshas. They are separated expansions of the Supreme Lord. And so their position is that of service. The Vibhinamshas, their position is service to the Swamsas. So the Vibhinamshas cannot become Swamsas. So that understanding must be there. In text 28, which is a very important verse, text 28. So actually from 28 and 29, Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. 28 and 29.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Ete chamsa kala pumshaha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yoge Yuge. All the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheist. The Lord incarnates to protect the atheist. Sorry, Lord incarnates to protect the theist. Prabhupada writes, in this particular stanza, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is distinguished from other incarnations. He is counted amongst the avatars incarnation because out of his causeless mercy, the Lord descends from his transcendental abode. An avatar means one who descends. All the incarnations of the Lord, including the Lord himself, descend to the different planets of the material world, as also in different species of life, to fulfill particular missions. Sometimes he comes himself, and sometimes his different plenary portions, or parts of the plenary portions, or his differentiated portions, directly or indirectly empowered by him, descend to this material world to execute certain specific functions. Originally, the Lord is full of all opulences, all prowess, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. So this verse tells us that Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. He has no other origin. Everything originates from this original personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadira Adir Govinda, Sarva Karanam Karanam. This is the original personality. He is the source of everything else. He is the supreme controller. All other controllers come from this form of Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. So the fountainhead of all incarnations is Krishna. So this verse is described as the Paribhasa Sutra. Paribhasa Sutra of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Paribhasa Sutra means the essence, the foundation, the summary of the Bhagavatam. That is described as the Paribhasa Sutra. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all incarnations. All the different incarnations are either planetary portions or portions of the planetary portions of the Lord. They appear whenever the atheists create a disturbance in the world. Text 29. In text 29, in text 29, it says, Jarma Guyam Bhagavato, Ya itar prayato naraha, Sayam prata grinam bhatya, Du kagramat vimuchate. Whoever, translation, whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. So this is also called the Falashruti. Falashruti means the result of performing a particular action. This is called a Falashruti. This verse 29 gives us the result of reciting all these verses describing the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here it says, whoever carefully recites these mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. So just by reciting this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, morning and evening, one will annihilate all miseries in one's life. One would eradicate all miseries in one's life, because these various incarnations, they come to execute specific functions for the benefit of humanity. As we see, the various incarnations are coming for different purposes for the benefit of humanity. So when you recite all these slokas, you get the benefit of the various incarnations that are coming into the world. They are coming for the benefit of humanity. So when you recite these slokas morning and evening, you get the benefit of their advent, of their coming down. You automatically get the benefit. So one should recite these prayers morning and evening. And the purpose of Prabhupada writes, in the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead has declared that anyone who knows the principle of the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord will go back home to Godhead after being relieved from this material tabernacle. So simply by knowing factually the mysterious way of the Lord's incarnations in this material world can liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, the birth and activities of the Lord as manifested by him for the welfare of the people in general are not ordinary. They are mysterious, and only by those who carefully try to go deep into the matter by spiritual devotion is the mystery discovered. And as one gets liberation from material bondage, it is advised, therefore, that one who simply recites this chapter of Bhagavatam, describing the appearance of the Lord in different incarnations, in sincerity and devotion, can have insight into the birth and activities of the Lord. The very word vimukti or liberation indicates that the Lord's birth and activities are all transcendental. Otherwise, simply by reciting them, one could not attain liberation. They are therefore mysterious, and those who do not follow the prescribed regulations of devotional service are not entitled to enter into the mysteries of his births and activities. So reciting this passage, this chapter, frees one from miseries. It awards one liberation, and it reveals the mysteries of the activities of the Lord. So, so it is important for us to recite this chapter every day. The benefits are many. One will be relieved from all miseries of life. One would be liberated from this world, and one would understand the mysteries of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we proceed to text. Yeah, any question?
Yeah, before we go forward, I would like to know who is using Zoom user. Who is that person? Can you on? I'd like to know who is there. Shitan has instructed for me to monitor the platform, but I don't know who is using Zoom user. And the person who's on this video,
I see Gopinath's face.
See the person or mention is.
I see Gopinath's face. I see Gopinath's face. Gopinath, yeah. He's the one using the Zoom user.
Hare Krishna.
Who?
I'm Gopinath.
Hare Krishna. Okay, okay, it's all right. It's okay for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything wrong using it? Is there anything wrong using it?
It's okay, Prabhuji.
Your identity was not showing. Your identity was not showing. Gopinath, your identity was not showing. That's why he's asking, because we don't want people who don't belong to the class to join the class. Sometimes people do like that.
Oh, because of the network, I use 2 phones.
I see.
So when one is not working, then I turn to the other.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So I'm the only one here in class.
Okay.
It's all right, Prabhuji.
So we move on to text 30.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please do.
This narration about the activities, form, pastimes, incarnations of the Lord are said to be the key to opening the door of the kingdom of God. And there are so many references from all of the Vedic scriptures that refers to this. So my question is this. What role does the listener or the speaker of these verses play in the result that it awards? And I'm asking this from the background of the fact that in the early days of ISKCON, there are some devotees. In those days, the culture of reading and studying was very pronounced. And we see that there are some devotees that even some of us were envying. They could recite almost the whole of the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. They have so many Bhagavatam verses off air. And they recite this, but miraculously, somehow or the other, for whatever reason, they fall off on the path of Krishna consciousness. And even in our today's experience, we see that even after hearing classes so many years, and people still fall back. So this probed my questioning that what role does because it could look as if maybe these are just mythology, because some of the new generations even are propounding this philosophy that we have a very wonderful scriptures, but they're just mythology and they're not realistic, because we see that on a practical basis, so many people know these verses, they read the verses, but they have an attitude that does not relate to Bhakti, or sometimes they even fall apart away from the path of Bhakti, which is not supposed to be. So I would like you to explain further on this.
Well, thank you for your question. It's a very, how do I put it? It's a serious question, in a sense that the process of Bhakti is not it's not an external show. The process of Bhakti is not an external show. In many of our situations, people simply show off how much they know, how much they can remember, how much it becomes an academic affair. I know many devotees who knew so many verses as far back as 84, 85, when we didn't even understand the Bhagavad Gita well. We didn't understand many things about Srimad Bhagavatam. There were devotees who knew the whole Bhagavad Gita slokas, and they could recite it. They could rattle it like anything. But you see, the process of bhakti is a change of heart. It's transformation. So if one is absorbed in those things, that shows how intelligent we are, how brilliant we are, how expert we are, and is not cultivating that internal transformation. If he's simply doing things outside to impress others without actually cultivating the inner consciousness, the environment of the mind and the heart, one will not sustain his devotional activities. That's one point. The second point is that if we commit offenses, we cannot stay in the process of bhakti. So if we may display so much bhakti, we may display so much knowledge, but if we don't apply the knowledge, if we become offensive towards devotees, become offensive towards the system, become offensive towards the spiritual master, and even become offensive towards Krishna, then we cannot sustain our devotional life. We will be stopped in our tracks. So there are several reasons why we see people in the beginning, they show so much learning, so much knowledge, but it becomes material. They pride themselves in knowing the scripture. They pride themselves in quoting verses. They don't really bring it to their heart. They don't bring it inside. It is all external. But Krishna consciousness is not an external activity. It is actually internal. So one needs to cultivate his consciousness, cultivate his heart, more than display what we know, more than display what we think we are, so that people will respect us, people will honor us, people will put us on the high pedestal. That is not devotional service. Such people, after a while, because there is no internal connection, after a while, they will leave. And then they will say, it is mythology. Krishna consciousness is not mythology. Krishna consciousness is real. It can be experienced. It is a blissful process. Susukam avyayam. Kartum susukam avyayam. It is a happy process, but one must know how to connect to the happy process. It's an internal process than external. But many people, they go for the externals. They want to show off. They want to show how learned they are. They want to show how much they know. They want to show their superior position of learning. All this is material. And so it cannot sustain their spiritual life. Trina api sunechena taro api sahis nuna amanena manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us a principle, a guidance, how we can progress on the path of bhakti. One has to be as humble as the blade of grass. One must be ready to give respect to everyone without expecting respect from anybody. One has to be as tolerant as a tree. Then one can become a devotee. One can chant the holy names of the Lord, and one can experience purification. So if these things are not there, we may demonstrate how much we know. We may demonstrate how much we have learned. We may demonstrate how powerful we are. But the internal environment is empty. And therefore, after a while, we'll give it up. So the important thing is to cultivate an internal connection with Krishna, with the holy name. That is most important. And those devotees who are doing that, they have remained. Why is it that everybody has not left? Why? If they say the process is mythological, the process is not working, then why is it that some devotees have remained from the beginning to the end? They have not left. It's because they are having some taste. It's because they are having some experiences in Krishna consciousness that have sustained their lives, and they're there. So we cannot say, we cannot generalize. If it's not working for you, it doesn't mean it's not working for others. If you're not experiencing the bliss of Krishna consciousness, you cannot conclude that others are not experiencing Krishna consciousness. It's an individual affair. If you do the right thing, you will get the right result. If you don't do the right thing, you will not get the result. So Prabhupada says this Krishna consciousness is a scientific process. In science, in the science laboratory, it is said that you add 2 molecules of oxygen to 1 molecule of 2 molecules of hydrogen to 1 molecule of oxygen, and you get water. If you add 2 molecules of oxygen to 2 molecules of hydrogen, you won't get water, you'll get hydrogen peroxide. So similarly, it is a scientific process. If we follow it as it is given by the acharyas, we can feel the potency of Krishna consciousness. But if we do it the way we want it, we cannot get the same result. So Krishna consciousness is a very, very wonderful process. And if we follow what we are given, as we are given, we will get a result. But if we do it the way we want it, we can show off for a while, but we'll drop off. And if we also commit offenses against devotees, and we commit offenses against the system, and we commit offenses against the spiritual master, we commit offenses against Krishna, how can we sustain ourselves in Krishna consciousness? It's not possible. So there are several reasons why people come and people go. But the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that whoever has come in touch with Krishna consciousness and whatever we have done, it goes into our eternal credit. In the next life, Krishna will ensure that we are connected. And wherever we have left off, we'll begin from there. So that is the beauty. We don't regret that they have left, in a sense that whatever little things they've done in Krishna consciousness, in their next life will serve as a foundation for their progress, and they will make further advancement, as Krishna has stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Suchinam, what is it? Suchinam something gehe. That's 642 or 643. Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is glorifying the yogi who can complete his spiritual life. In 41, it says that Prapya Punya Kritam Lokam Ushitwa Sansriti Samaha Suchinam Srimantam Gehe Suchinam Srimantam Gehe Yoga Brasta Vijayate. So the unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. That's 41. 42 says, after a long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. So, whatever credit one has cultivated in this process is not lost. It will continue in the next life from where he left off. But Krishna consciousness is a very serious process. So, if we really want to make a difference in our lives, then we have to be serious. We have to follow as it is given. We cannot adjust it. We cannot do it the way we want it. And at the same time, we want results. It doesn't work like that. That's why I say it's a very serious question. And only serious people ask such serious questions. You have done a movement before many people who have joined and gone. Why are you still here? If you are not experiencing anything, will you remain? There are stories who have been there from the beginning, they are still there. If they are not experiencing anything, will they remain? So those who are not experiencing anything, it means that they have not actually applied the process. They are doing it their own way, and they are not getting the result, and they are now generalizing that the process doesn't work. It's not like that. Krishna consciousness is a personal application. And if you personally apply, Krishna will reciprocate. Krishna reciprocates according to how we are doing it. If we do it rightly, Krishna will reciprocate. If you do it wrongly, Krishna will stop us. So the choice is ours. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Perfectly well answered. Thank you very much for the word. But I want to ask one more question. I know that we have about 7 verses or 8 to cover, but there is a second question. In the course of your explanation of the verses 5 to 24, there is a narration you gave about Uddhava and Maitreya. And you mentioned Maitreya and Vidura, and relating to Uddhava, yes, Uddhava and then Vidura. And you mentioned a point there which is very captive to my attention. about avoiding offenses of a younger person trying to supersede a superior person. And you reference age. So that brought my attention to a question, because we found out that even in the path of Bhakti, sometimes you find the guru far, far more younger than the student or the aspirant. And the only qualification of his being able to instruct, chastise, and correct or deliver Krishna's message to such a student is based on the fact that he has received the message. So in this case, Uddhava has received the message directly from Krishna. So why would he consider it an offense to directly relate that message?
Well, see, that is an interesting question. I think Prabhupada explains in that purport that even though Uddhava was qualified, actually, Uddhava was qualified to speak to Vidura. Why? Because Uddhava was an associate of Krishna. Uddhava, he has so many qualifications. Uddhava is a student of Brihaspati. Uddhava learned Srimad Bhagavatam from Brihaspati. He was an outstanding student of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is why Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan. Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan for one reason, because he was very conversant with the pastimes of Krishna. He was very deep in the knowledge of the pastimes of Krishna. He was a first-class student of Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, Krishna sent him to Vrindavan to deliver the message of Srimad Bhagavatam to the gopis, to the Brajavasis. So, if Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan to speak to the Brajavasis, to speak to the gopis, then what stops Uddhava from speaking to Vidura? The Brajavasis, the gopis, are considered the most exalted devotees. Yet Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan to deliver his message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So what prevents Uddhava from instructing Vidura? But Srila Prabhupada explains that even though Uddhava was qualified, being a direct representative of Krishna, being a direct associate of Krishna, being a scholar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, being a first-class student of Brihaspati, he has so many credentials why he could instruct Vidura. But Prabhupada said a devotee always has a humble disposition. A devotee always exhibits a humble disposition. Uddhava wasn't thinking, I'm so great, I know so much, let me instruct Vidura. He was thinking, Vidura is at the age of my father. Vidura is as old as my father. And even though I met Krishna directly, I received the instruction from Krishna directly, but I don't consider myself qualified enough to speak to Vidura. So he declined. He said, go to Maitreya. Since he's nearby, so go to him and take that instruction from Maitreya. I cannot speak to you. So Uddhava is showing his humility, and he is also teaching the lesson that one should not supersede his superiors. It's an important lesson. One should not supersede his superiors. Now, if somebody is in a position of a sannyasi, of a spiritual master, of a manager, of an administrator, he has the authority. That also we should understand. When somebody is an administrator, he's like a father. He must correct. Of course, he has to know how to do it when it comes to people who are older than him in the system. He cannot climb on top of their heads as he would do with junior ones. He has to have a way of doing it, but he has the authority to correct. Similarly, if somebody is in a position of a sannyasi, sannyasis are said to be the head of the spiritual family, the brahmanas, the spiritualists, the sannyasis are the heads. So one may be a younger sannyasi and there may be an older person in the audience, but because of his position as a sannyasi, he can still speak authoritatively for the benefit of everyone. Or if somebody is a spiritual master and a disciple is very old, he has the authority. He represents the super soul. He represents Krishna. So he has the authority to instruct such an old person. So these things are there. But the fellow should not think that because I am this position, I can just chastise people, I can just talk roughly to people. No, it's not like that. You speak for the benefit of the person. When you speak for the benefit of the person, that is glorious. You are not doing it out of false ego. You're not doing it out of some personal interest or some prestige. You are doing it for the benefit of the person in question. So in that sense, it doesn't constitute an offense. It doesn't go against this principle of Maryada Vita Krama. So it is there. Like even you see the case of Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami was a young boy, 16-year-old boy. Parikshit Maharaj was a king of the entire world. He was the emperor. But Shukadeva Goswami instructed him. And Parikshit Maharaj became the disciple. And Shukadeva Goswami became the guru. 16-year-old boy instructing the king. So those things are there. Shukadeva Goswami is not thinking, oh, just see this foolish king. He doesn't know what he knows. Small boy, 16 years, I'm instructing. He's not thinking like that. He's concerned about the destiny of the king. He's concerned about the future of the king. So he's speaking to free the king from the anxiety of the curse. He's speaking to give the king knowledge how he can overcome that curse and go back home, back to Godhead. So in that sense, Shukadeva Goswami is a well-wisher of Parikshit Maharaj. So therefore, as a well-wisher, he can speak, he can instruct. So if we find ourselves in a position where we have to instruct somebody who is superior to us, either by age or whatever, we should only see ourselves as well-wishers. And if you act as a well-wisher, it doesn't become an offense. But the point here is that Uddhava he wanted to set an example. He could have instructed, actually Vidura requested Uddhava. Vidura said, you are qualified. You can give me the information. But Uddhava resisted. Vidura was ready to receive, Vidura was ready to accept Uddhava as his spiritual master because he knows the position of Uddhava. Uddhava is very close to Krishna. So what else does he need to become a spiritual master of Vidura? But Uddhava said, no, please go to Maitreya Muni. Maitreya is just at Haridwar, it's not far away from here. Go there and meet him. So he was just setting an example for us to follow. So anyway, I think if you read that area, if you read that purport, read that area, you see Prabhupada's explanation. And then the Jiva Goswami has also commented on this verse, on that issue in his Sandarbhas. He has commented elaborately on this issue of Mariada Vichakrama. So if you read that area, you will see how Prabhupada explains it. So I think we should move on. Time is not waiting for us. It's almost 9 o'clock, and we have to conclude this chapter today. So we are on verse, is it 30? We are on verse 30. Verse 30 says, Ita rupam bhagavato hi arupasya chit admanaha maya gunai virachitam mahadabir admani. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent, the neophytes, to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having a form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. So, in the purpose of Prabhupada writes, the conception of the Lord known as the Vishwarupa or the Virarupa is particularly mentioned along with the various incarnations of the Lord because all the incarnations of the Lord mentioned above are transcendental, and there is not a tinge of materialism in their bodies. There is no difference between the body and self, as there is in the conditioned soul. The Virarupa is conceived for those who are just neophyte worshippers. For them, the material Virarupa is presented, and it will be explained in the second canto. In the Virarupa, the material manifestations of different planets have been conceived as his legs, hands, and etc. Actually, all such descriptions are for the neophytes. The neophytes cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. The material conception of the Lord is not counted in the list of his functional forms. As Paramatma or Supersoul, the Lord is within each and every material form, even within the atoms. But the outward material form is but an imagination. But for the Lord and for the living being, both for the Lord and for the living being, this present form of the conditioned souls are also not factual. The conclusion is that the material conceptions of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. Both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have no original and have original spiritual bodies. So the universal form, Virat universal form of the Lord, is not present in the spiritual world. It is only present in the material world. And here it is described as imaginary. So it is said that the Virat Rupa is not permanent. It has no permanent manifestation. It can only be manifested and unmanifested according to time, place, and circumstance. Just to show how the Lord is controlling the universe. Because the universe itself is material. So therefore, the form that shows how the Lord manages the universe is also material. It has no permanent existence. Similarly, the body of the living entity, the physical body of the living entity, is just like the universal form. It has no foundation. It has no permanent existence. The body is obtained from a mother's womb and is dropped when the soul goes, and the body disintegrates. It has no permanent existence. So therefore, it is said that the bodies the form of the universal form and the form of the body of the living entity are all imaginary, because they are called imaginary because they do not have a permanent existence. They don't have a permanent existence. And this Prabhupada mentions here that it is actually meant for the neophyte who cannot conceive of the spiritual nature of the Lord. The neophytes cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. So therefore, the conception of the material conception of the Lord is for their benefit. But the conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary, because both the Lord and the living entities, they are living spirits with original spiritual bodies. So this Virat Rupa is only manifested within the material world, is only manifested within the universe, but it doesn't exist in the spiritual world. Similarly, the material body of the living entity is only manifested in the material world. It doesn't manifest in the spiritual world. But the Lord has his original spiritual form, and the living entity also has a spiritual form. And in the spiritual environment, they exist in those spiritual forms. So those spiritual forms, they are eternal, and they are not imaginary. They are described as arupa. Arupa means that they are transcendental. So that is the understanding from this verse, that the Virat Rupa, universal form, is material and has no spiritual basis. But still, it is counted as one of the incarnations of the Lord. So it's counted as a material incarnation of the Lord, because it helps the neophytes, it helps the atheists to accept the authority of the Supreme Lord. Like we mentioned before, when Krishna went to Hastinapur to deliver the peace message, Duryodhana attempted to arrest Krishna, and Krishna displayed his universal form. And when Duryodhana saw the universal form, he understood that Krishna cannot be arrested. So for the atheistic people like Duryodhana, this universal form is important. For the neophyte devotee, when they see the great form, the universal form, how the Lord is managing the universe, then they show respect. They develop respect towards the Supreme Lord. So therefore, the universal form plays a positive role in the life of the demons and the life of neophyte devotees. And that is why the Lord manifested to show how he controls the universe and to convince the neophyte devotees and the demons. So therefore, the Lord manifested, though it is only within the material world. It is not there in the spiritual world. So I think we move on to text 31. Text 31 says, Yata nabasi me gao renuva paritivo nile evam drashtari drishyatvam aropitam abu dibihi. Translation: clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit soul. I take that again. Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dusty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. And the purpose of Prabhupada says, it is further confirmed herein that with our material eyes and senses, we cannot see the Lord, who is all spiritual. We cannot even detect the spiritual spark which exists within the material body of the living being. We look to the outward covering of the body or subtle mind of the living being, but we cannot see the spiritual spark within the body. So we have to accept the living being's presence by the presence of his gross body. Similarly, those who want to see the Lord with their present material eyes or with the material senses are advised to meditate on the gigantic external feature called the Varaha Rupa. For instance, when a particular gentleman goes in his car, which can be seen very easily, we identify the car with the man within the car. When the president goes out in his particular car, we say, there is the president. For the time being, we identify the car with the president. Similarly, less intelligent men who want to see God immediately without necessary qualification are shown first the gigantic material cosmos as the form of the Lord. Although the Lord is within and without, the clouds in the sky and the blue of the sky are better appreciated in this connection. Although the bluish tint of the sky and the sky itself are different, we conceive of the color of the sky as blue, but that is a general conception for the layman only. So the important message here is that the Varaha Rupa is for those who do not have the necessary qualification, the prerequisites of seeing God, yet they want to see God. So therefore, the Lord is all merciful. He manifests this Varaha Rupa, this material form, just to satisfy those who do not have the qualification to see his transcendental form, yet they are demanding to see God. So therefore, Krishna manifests the Varaha Rupa, the material form that the materialistic people can see. In fact, sometimes the demons, they don't even recognize Krishna. Krishna is standing there as the Swayam Rupa, Swayam Bhagavan, but the demons don't even see him that way. Duryodhana was not seeing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was only seeing him as the king of Dwaraka. So therefore, he was making plans to arrest him. So even though Krishna was present in his spiritual form, Duryodhana did not see that. He was calculating the power of Krishna, and therefore he was making plans to arrest Krishna. So Krishna manifested the universal form, because that's why Duryodhana understands. That's the language of Duryodhana. That's the language of the demons. When they see great power, when they see great opulence, then the demons, they bow. So Krishna understood the mindset of Duryodhana, and therefore he displayed the universal form. And when Duryodhana saw the universal form, he bowed. He gave up the idea that he can arrest Krishna. So it is said that Arjuna did not need to see the universal form. He did not need, because he's a constant companion of Krishna. But he demanded to see the universal form for one reason: to establish the authority of Krishna, to establish the supremacy of Krishna. So that in the future, if anybody comes to claim that he's Krishna, in the future, if somebody comes to claim he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we should immediately ask him to display his universal form. And if he cannot show his universal form, we should write him off as a charlatan. We should write him off as a pretender. He's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is why Arjuna demanded to see how Krishna is running the universal affairs. And Krishna immediately showed in the universal form. So the universal form is temporary. It is only manifested in the material world. It is not present in the spiritual world because it is not spiritual. That is the understanding. So we go to text 32. Text 32 says, Ata param yat avyatam avyuha guna brihitam adrishta snuta vastutvat sa jivoyat guna bhavaha. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has this form beyond this subtlety. Otherwise, he could not have repeated births. Prabhupada writes in his purport, as the gross cosmic manifestation is conceived as a gigantic body of the Lord, so also there is a conception of his subtle form, which is simply realized without being seen, heard, or manifested. But in fact, all these gross and subtle conceptions of the body are in relation with the living beings. The living being has a spiritual form beyond this gross material and subtle psychic existence. The gross body and psychic functions cease to act as soon as the living being leaves the physical gross body. In fact, we say that the living being has gone away because he is unseen and unheard. Even when the gross body is not acting, when the living being is in a sound sleep, we know that he is within the body by his breathing. So the living being's passing away from the body does not mean that there is no existence of the living soul. It is therefore otherwise. It is there. Otherwise, how can he repeat his births again and again? The conclusion is that the Lord is eternally existent in his transcendental form, which is neither gross nor subtle like that of the living beings. His body is never to be compared to the gross and subtle bodies of the living being. All such conceptions of God's body are imaginary. The living being has his eternal spiritual form, which is conditioned only by his material contamination. So the gross cosmic manifestation is conceived as the gigantic body of the Lord. The gross cosmic manifestation, the universal manifestation, is considered the body of the Lord. Of course, we agree that the cosmos originates from God. The cosmos is manifested from the material ingredients, and the material ingredients are manifested from the pradhan, which is a subtle form of the material energy. And this subtle form of the material energy actually is the Bahiranga Shakti, the external potency of the Lord. So everything is actually emanating from the Lord. But when it is within the Lord, the gross aspect is missing. The gross aspect is not there. It is only when creation is to be effected, then it is manifested as pradhana. And when Mahavishnu glances at this pradhana, then the Manhatattva is manifested, containing time, containing the modes, containing the living entities and everything. And that initiates material creation. So the cosmic manifestation is conceived as the gigantic body of the Lord because its origin is the Lord. But it is also different from the Lord because the Lord is transcendental. Harihi Nirguna Shakshat. The Lord is Nirguna. He is above the modes. He is above material qualities. He is above material elements. His body is not made of material elements. So he's above all this. And therefore, He's different from the universe. But for the neophyte devotee, for the atheist, this universal form is important because it stands on their mind, the authority of the Supreme. That is the essence. That is the point. The universal form impresses upon the mind of the atheist that God is great. It impresses upon the mind of the neophyte devotee that God is great. And that humbles them and allows them to surrender to the Supreme. But for an advanced devotee, he sees the beautiful form of Krishna. He sees the Shama Sundara form of Krishna. And he's satisfied with that. And therefore, he doesn't take interest in the universal form. Just as we see in the case of Arjuna. As soon as Krishna displayed the universal form, Arjuna was not interested. Immediately, Arjuna told Krishna, please withdraw this form. What is the use of this huge form? Withdraw it. And I want to see your Somya Vapur. Somya Vapur means the beautiful form, the 200 form with a flute. That is the most beautiful form of the Lord. That's what Arjuna wanted to see. Arjuna had been seeing that form. And now Krishna showed him that huge universal form. And it didn't go well with Arjuna. Arjuna is a very advanced devotee. So he didn't take any interest in the universal form. So he ordered the Lord, please, let me see that your Somya Vapur, that your beautiful form with 2 hands, 2 legs, with a flute. That is the most attractive form I want to see. And so Krishna reverted back to his 200 form. So an advanced devotee does not take interest in seeing the universal form. But for the atheistic people and for the neophyte devotee, Krishna manifests the universal form to impress upon them the greatness of God. And that helps them to surrender to God. And that initiates their spiritual life. So it is said, the conclusion is that the Lord is eternally existent in his transcendental form, which is neither gross nor subtle, like that of the living being. The living being has a gross body and a subtle body. But the Lord doesn't have a gross body and a subtle body. The Lord is original. His body is original. But the universal form is just for a purpose. And so the Lord manifested when the need arises. But the understanding is that the Lord has his transcendental form beyond the 3 modes of material nature. And that form exists in the spiritual world. Of course, when the Lord comes into the material world, he comes along with that form also. Text 33. Says, Yatra me sarasarupe pratishide swasam vidaha avidyayat mani krite iti tat brahma darshanam. Translation: whether a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time, he sees himself as well as the Lord. So whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time, he sees himself as well as the Lord. And the Purple Prabhupada writes, the difference between self-realization and material illusion is to know that the temporary illusory impositions of material energy in the shape of gross and subtle bodies are superficial coverings of the self. The coverings take place due to ignorance. Such coverings are never effective in the person or the personality of Godhead. Knowing this convincingly is called liberation, or seeing the absolute truth. This means that perfect self-realization is made possible by adoption of godly or spiritual life. Self-realization means becoming indifferent to the needs of the gross and subtle bodies and becoming serious about the activities of the self. The impetus for activities is generated from the self, but such activities become illusory due to ignorance of the real position of the self. By ignorance, self-interest is calculated in terms of the gross and subtle bodies, and therefore a whole set of activities is spoiled life after life. When, however, one meets the self by proper culture, the activities of the self begin. Therefore, a man who is engaged in the activities of the self is called Jivanmukta, or a liberated person, even in a conditional existence. And Jivanmukta, it is interesting. It is said that to be a minute, I'm looking for something. The 7 is the symptoms of a Jiva Mukta. So here, the man who is engaged in the activities of the self is called a Jiva Mukta, a liberated person, even in his conditioned way. So it says there are symptoms of a Jiva Mukta. First is Apahata Papa. Apahata Papa means freedom from sinful activity. That means a Jiva Mukta does not engage in sinful activities. Vijara. Vijara means a Jiva Mukta is not subjected to the miseries of old age. It's not affected by old age. Even sickness is not affected. Externally, he may look like he's sick, but internally, he is relishing Krishna consciousness. Vimutyu. He does not accept material bodies anymore after leaving this body. In other words, when he leaves this body, he doesn't come back into the material world. Vishoka. He is not affected by material distress and material happiness. Whether he is praised or insulted, he is not bothered by them. Vijikatsa. He no more desires or hankers after material pleasures. Apipata. His only business is devotional service. He doesn't want to engage in any material activity. His only business is devotional service. Satya Karma. And because he's completely absorbed in Krishna's service, Satya Karma means one's desires are automatically fulfilled. Whatever he's desiring, Krishna fulfills it. Because he has no material aspiration, he is only desiring spiritual activities and desiring spiritual things. Krishna fulfills his desires. And so he's called Satya Karma. And then he's also called Satya Sankalpa. Whatever he desires, comes to be. Satya Karma, all his desires are fulfilled by the Lord. Actually, Satya Karma means all his desires are directed to the Lord. Everything he is doing is for the Lord's pleasure. That is Satya Karma. He has no separate interest. Everything is for Krishna's pleasure. And Satya Sankalpa means the Lord fulfills all his desires. So because everything is meant for Krishna's pleasure, Krishna fulfills all his desires. Like Srila Prabhupada, we see, he wanted to establish 108 temples. Krishna fulfilled it. He wanted to establish BBT. Krishna fulfilled it. He wanted to preach all over the whole world. Krishna fulfilled it. Whatever Prabhupada wanted, Krishna fulfilled it. That is called Satya Sankalpa. But Satya Sankalpa only comes when one is doing everything in the interest of the Lord, and that is called Satya Karma. So these are the symptoms of a Jiva Mukta, as mentioned here. Jiva Mukta, a liberated person. One who is free from sinful activity, one who is not subject to miseries of old age and disease, one who will not take birth again when he leaves this world, one who is callous about material distress and material happiness, one who is no longer desires material enjoyment, one who is always engaged in Krishna's service, one who directs all his activities for Krishna's pleasure, and therefore Krishna fulfills all his desires. So these are the symptoms of a Jiva Mukta. We go on to text 34. 34. I have to go a bit faster so we can finish. 34 says, Yadi isoparta devi maya vaishardi matihi sapana eveti vidur mahimni swe mahiyate. If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. I'll read a bit of the purport. Because the Lord is the absolute transcendent, all of his forms, names, pastimes, attributes, associates, and energies are identical with him. His transcendental energy acts according to his omnipotency. The same energy acts as his external, internal, and marginal energies. And by his omnipotency, he can perform anything and everything through the agency of any of the above energies. So the energies of the Lord, they are under the control of the Lord, and the Lord can, through his omnipotency, utilize all of these energies for any purpose. But for the living entity, he is bewildered by the external potency. The Lord is never bewildered by the external potency. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. Because the living entity is Tatastha Shakti, is marginal potency, so he can be influenced. But the Lord is never under any influence. So therefore, the living entity sometimes is under the illusory energy, and therefore he lives in the material world. And sometimes it's under the spiritual energy, and he lives in the spiritual world. So it says here, when the illusory energy subsides, the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord. Then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization, and thus becomes situated in his own glory. So actually, devotional service is meant to exalt the living entity. The devotional service actually promotes the living entity onto a very glorious platform. And that's why Ramana Rai says, the most important person, the most popular person, the greatest capitalist in this world is the Krishna Bhakta, because devotional service makes him very exalted. It brings him close to the Lord and makes him glorious. So devotional service actually makes a living entity glorious. And anybody who takes it very seriously, Krishna makes that devotee very glorious. That is a fact. It is very practical. That the more we try to serve Krishna without any material motives, the more Krishna will reciprocate with us. So that is a fact. Text 35. Evam janmanani karmani hi akartu ajyasya cha Varnayanti sma kavayo Veda Guyani Hirpatehe. Translation. Thus, learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in the very literatures, is the Lord of the heart. Purport. Both the Lord and the living entity are essentially all spiritual. Therefore, both of them are eternal, and neither of them has birth and death. The difference is that the so-called birth and disappearance of the Lord are unlike those of the living beings. The living beings who take birth and then again accept death are bound by the laws of material nature. But the so-called appearance and disappearance of the Lord are not actions of material nature, but are demonstrations of the internal potency of the Lord. So there is a difference between the appearance and disappearance of the Lord and between that of the living entity and the Lord. I mean, the appearance and disappearance of the Lord is under the eternal potency, while the appearance and disappearance of the living entity is under the external potency. They are under different departments. So the Lord's appearance is arranged by Yoga Maya, and similarly, his disappearance is arranged by Yoga Maya. It is beyond our conception. It is beyond our understanding. And that is why there's so much speculation. Oh, Krishna was killed by a hunter. Oh, Krishna did this. Oh, Krishna did that. We have no knowledge. We have no experience. We have no conception what is happening behind the scene. We are only seeing. Our eyes are deceiving us. We cannot see things perfectly. Our eyes are only limited to physical things. So how can we see what is happening on the spiritual dimension? So therefore, the appearance and disappearance of Krishna is not under the laws of nature. It is under Yoga Maya's activities. But that of the living entity is under Mahamaya's activity. So that has to be clear. But here there's a point that is mentioned. It says, akartur. Kartur, akartur. Kartur means to do, and akartur means to undo. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a similar statement. It says, Ishwara Jagannath Yandra Haite Kartum Akartum Anyantra Karite Smarta. Lord Jagannath, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has all potencies. Therefore, he is able to act freely. He can do and undo whatever he likes. That is the position of the Supreme Lord. Kartum akartum. The Lord can do and undo whatever he likes. The living entity cannot do that, but the Lord can do that. That's the difference between the Jiva and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In text 36, it says, Sava idam vishwam muga nilaha Sri Jati Avati Atina Sajatismin Bhuteshu Chantrita Atma Tantrai Sadvi Savargikam Jigarti Sadguneshaha. Translation: the Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. Prabhupada writes in the purport, the prime difference between the Lord and the living entities is that the Lord is the creator and the living entities are the created. Here he is called the Amorga Lila, which indicates that there is nothing lamentable in his creation. Those who create disturbances in his creation are themselves disturbed. He is transcendental to all material afflictions because he's full with all 6 opulences, namely wealth, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. And thus he is the master of the senses. Hirsikesa hirsikena bhakti uchate. The senses are Krishna's property. The 6 senses, which includes the mind, they are Krishna's property, and therefore they are meant for his service. Just like the 6 opulences are Krishna's property, and they are meant for his service. So those who are wise, those who are the devotees, they understand that these 6 senses and 6 opulences are meant for Krishna's pleasure. And so they direct them towards Krishna's service. And so the Lord reciprocates with them. They transcend material nature. But those who want to exploit the 6 senses and they want to exploit the 6 opulences, they want to own the 6 opulences, they become entangled and they have to go through repeated birth and death. So knowing that the 6 senses, the Lord is the master of the 6 senses and the 6 opulences, we should surrender unto Krishna and utilize the 6 senses and the 6 opulences for his service. And Krishna will help us out of this material creation. Satatam yukta bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogamtam. Krishna is saying, those who are devoted to me constantly in devotional service, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So if we utilize our 6 senses and we utilize the 6 opulences in Krishna's devotional service, Krishna will definitely give us the intelligence by which we can come to him. Text 37. Says, Na chasya kaschin nipunena datur avaiti jantur kumasnisha utihi namani rupani manovachobir santa vato nata charyam ivajyaha. Translation: the foolish with the poor fund of knowledge cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama, nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words. Prabhupada writes, no one can properly describe the transcendental nature of the absolute truth. Therefore, it is said that he is beyond the expression of mind and speech. And yet, there are some men with a poor fund of knowledge who desire to understand the absolute truth by imperfect mental speculation and faulty description of his activities. To the layman, his activities, appearance and disappearance, his name, his form, his paraphernalia, his personalities, and all things in relation with him are mysterious. So everything about the Lord is mysterious, and one needs a clear spiritual guidance to understand these mysteries. Actually, Krishna told Arjuna that you can understand the mysteries of my activities just because you are a friend and you are a devotee. So to understand the mysteries of the Lord, one has to be very close to the Lord. If one is not close to the Lord, then one cannot understand the mysteries of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is acting like an actor. Actually, Kunti also said the same thing, that my dear Krishna, remove the curtain that covers you. You are acting like a person on the stage. You are acting like a dramatist. And so your real nature is not seen or known. So can you remove that curtain and let us see your original form? Let us understand your real nature. So Krishna's pastimes, some of them are like drama. And so it's not very easy to understand. Unless Krishna reveals himself, it is difficult to even understand some of the pastimes that Krishna performs. So those who are poor fond of knowledge, they cannot understand the transcendental nature of the form, of the name, of the activity of the Lord, because Krishna blindfolds them. Krishna has a curtain that covers his real identity, and these non-devotees, they cannot comprehend, they cannot know. So it's like a magician. A magician. He is not easily understood. His magical activities are not easily understood. But if one is very close to the magician, he can understand what is going on. In 38, it says, Saveda datur padavim parasya duranta viryasya ratanga panehe yomayaya santantaya mritya bhajita tatpada saronya gandam. Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. Prabhupada writes in the purport, only the pure devotees can know the transcendental name, form, and activities of Lord Krishna due to their being completely freed from the reactions of fruitive work and mental speculation. The pure devotees have nothing to derive as personal profit from their unalloyed service of the Lord. They render incessant service to the Lord spontaneously without any reservation. Everyone within the creation of the Lord is rendering service to the Lord indirectly or directly. No one is an exception to this law of the Lord. Those who are rendering service indirectly, being forced by the illusory energy of the Lord, are rendering service unto him unfavorably. But those who are rendering service unto him directly, under the direction of his beloved agent, are rendering service unto him favorably. Such favorable servitors are devotees of the Lord, and by the grace of the Lord, they can enter into the mysterious region of transcendence by the mercy of the Lord. So, devotional service should be performed favorably. Anushlanam. Anushlanam. Devotional service should be performed favorably for Krishna's satisfaction. That is the definition of pure devotional service by Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami says, service that is rendered for Krishna's pleasure and for no other reason, that is considered pure devotional service. And only that kind of service that attracts Krishna's attention. And that is why pure devotional service is described as akarshani. Akarshani. It attracts Krishna because it's very attractive. That Krishna cannot resist such pure devotional service. So that is direct service. Favorable service means directly serving the Lord. There is also unfavorable service, which is described as indirect service. Those who are engaged by the material energy, they are also rendering service, but such service is indirect and therefore is unfavorable. So a devotee has to engage in favorable service directly for Krishna's pleasure. That is what attracts Krishna. The last part of the purport, Prabhupada writes, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself guides the pure devotees towards the path of realization due to their constant engagement in the loving service of the Lord in spontaneous affection. That is the secret of entering into the kingdom of God. Fruitive activities and speculation are no qualification for entering the spiritual world. So the secret of entering the spiritual world is to take guidance from the pure devotees of the Lord, and then engage in constant loving service in spontaneous affection. And that guarantees one entering the kingdom of God. Fruitive activities and mental speculation are no qualifications for entering the spiritual world. Therefore, a devotee does not take interest in fruitive activities or interest in mental speculation, because he knows that Krishna does not like these fruitive activities and mental speculation. A devotee works, a devotee does all that he wants to do, but he offers the results to Krishna. So it doesn't mean a devotee should not engage in activity. A devotee engages in activity, but the results are given to Krishna, and Krishna responds, Krishna reciprocates the devotee. The last verse, 39, says, Ateha danya bhagavanta itam yat vasudeve kila lokanate kurvante savatmakam atma bhavam na yatra bhuya parivata ugraha. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes and guarantees 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. For such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes and guarantee 100% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. The purport, so Prabhupada writes, the inquiries of the sages headed by Shunaka are herewith praised by Shuta Goswami on the merit of their transcendental nature. As already concluded, only the devotees of the Lord can know him to a considerable extent, and no one else can know him at all. So the devotees are perfectly cognizant of all spiritual knowledge. The personality of Godhead is the last word in the absolute truth. Impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma Super Soul are included in the knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So one who knows the personality of Godhead can automatically know all about him, his multipotencies and his expansions. So the devotees are congratulated as being all successful. A 100% devotee of the Lord is immune to the dreadful material miseries of repeated birth and death. So the devotees are being glorified here. The sages of Naima Serena, they have questioned Sutta Goswami, and he has attempted to answer their questions, and now he's glorifying them. That by making such inquiries in this world, one becomes successful and perfectly cognizant of the transcendental nature of the Lord. And as a result, one becomes immune from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. So this is the results of inquiring into the absolute truth and accepting the absolute truth and engaging in the service of the absolute truth. One automatically becomes freed from the miseries of repeated birth and death. One becomes a Jiva Mukta. He becomes liberated from the material world, and one returns to the spiritual world. That is our mission. That's our aspiration. We want to attain perfection. We want to get out of this material world and go back to the spiritual world. We are tired of this samsara, repeated birth and death. We are tired of it, and we want to return to the spiritual world. So by making spiritual inquiries, by engaging in spiritual discussions, we are preparing the way how to get back, to get out of this material world and go back home, back to the spiritual world. And so that brings us to the end of this unit. The second unit begins from verse 40. So if there are any comments, they are welcome. If there are no comments, we already spent 20 extra minutes just to finish. If there are any comments, you are welcome. If there are no comments, we call it a day. And next week, as the facilitator has announced, there will be your assessment. There will be the testing on this unit. And then the essay, I thought I could get it together, but I've not. So what I'll do is that I will put it on the platform. I will get it, I'll put it on the platform. The essay numbers, I think you all have the handbooks, the student Bhakti Vaibhava handbook. So I will look at the essays and I will choose for you. Each one is supposed to write 2 essays. So we'll see which ones we want you to write, and we'll put it on the platform. So any comments or questions? Otherwise, we have already overspent 20 minutes of your time. Some of you, today is Sunday, as leaders, you have some responsibilities. And so we should end here if there are no questions.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentations. Even though I would have loved to expand this discussion a little bit, but we just have about 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes before the Bhakti Sastri class starts. So maybe outside of the class, maybe then maybe I may post some questions sometimes when you are free.
Okay.
Very good, especially the section of the overview. It is always very enlivening and sweet when you hear the narrations. They are very attractive to the mind. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm also a student. I always tell students that I love teaching because it gives me the opportunity to read. So I want to be an eternal student of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's the reason why I teach, because it makes me read, it makes me study. And by studying, you're always in touch with the Lord, you're always in touch with the great devotees. And so it's wonderful. So thank you for giving the opportunity. I don't know, Maharaj is, Chaitanya Prem is trying to get somebody to take over.
Yes, go ahead.
The unit 2, but I still have one more unit with you. Normally I teach unit 12, but so maybe if there are no teachers along the line, I may come back and do one more unit before we get to unit 12. So
okay,
we will meet again, maybe 2 more times before you end the module 1. Normally I teach 2 units or sometimes 3 units in module 1. So we'll see again.
Okay, thank you very much. I request all the to unmute now. Let us loudly chant a loud repetition of full mantra to appreciate his grace. Srivas Vanachari for this wonderful presentation. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Tabura Sabha, how are you?
Jai Radha Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Kunja Vihari Gopijana Bala Jayo Giripara Dhari Gopijana Bala Jayo Giripara Dhari Yashodananda Jayo Pratjan Ranjana Yashodananda